Welcome to Victoria's Nirvana with your host, Dr. Victoria Ravenwood, where it's all about empowering the sisterhood. It's time to free our inner Amazon, honor the feminine, and change this world.
Hello. Today I'd like to discuss women's empowerment, but there is no way one short podcast can accurately do justice to the depth and breadth of this situation and topic. And I've come to realize that, like many things, there's always the Western view and the non-Western view. We can't apply empowerment to every single woman in the world in the same way, but we can look at different cultures and countries and see how it can be applied. Though one thing is certain, that every woman in the world benefits and can be empowered if they are represented well politically. That brings empowerment to almost every woman in every country. In a New York Times opinion piece by Rafia Zakaria, it states that the assumption behind a lot of the donations from the Western world to help empower women is based on an economic issue, one that's separated from politics and can be resolved by a, quote, benevolent Western donor who provides sewing machines or chickens and thus delivers the women of, insert name of any non-Western country, from their lives of disempowered want. That all they need in some respects is just a starter kit, and that this will empower them, but research has not been done to show if this really empowers them in the long run. And that at the heart of women's empowerment in many countries lies the demand for a more robust global sisterhood, one in which no women are relegated to passivity and silence, their choices only limited to sewing machines and chickens. So, suffice it to say, political representation and equality in the eyes of the law is what empowers women mostly in any country. And that being said, economic empowerment is still important. Money gives you choices, it gives you freedom, it gives you access to things, and it gives a sense of confidence and self-worth with what you're able to create for yourself. And maybe, yes, having chickens, you can feed yourself and sell eggs and do these things that the charities are saying help to empower, and those things are great, but to really empower, you need to make sure that the laws are in place that respect women's rights, their right to autonomy, their right to make decisions for their lives. So it goes much deeper than just donating in this way, though that can be important and can have somewhat of an effect. But as in this HuffPost article on what is women's empowerment by Jin In, we really need to just understand that there is no common definition, and there may even be many countries that don't even have the concept or word for empowerment. But it really is up to having choices. It's up to being able to create change. It's up to having a voice. It's up to following your dreams. It's knowing your worth. There's so many layers to what could empower a single woman and what could empower many women and what could empower women across the globe. There's so many ways that it can be done and approached, and we have to have some cultural sensitivity when discussing it, and especially if we're applying it to a global scale. I think that all charities help and are of good service, and as long as they're looking at things in the long term, when it comes to empowering women and you're saying you're changing someone's life, you need to make sure you're looking at it long term and seeing if it actually does equate to empowerment or not. Because sometimes we can get stuck in the feel-goodness of donating and to, help lift up 10 women with your $100 donation, and that feels good, but you need to understand where the money's going and if it is actually doing the empowerment of that woman, and if there's a better way to go about doing it. Politics and law will always be a number one way of empowering women, because the law has to be on the side of a person or a race or a group to ensure that they have rights, to be able to enforce their rights, for them to know their rights. That is empowering, and being able to work toward gaining those rights. That is empowering. Then there's economic empowerment, and then there's self-empowerment. There's the everyday life empowerment of feeling good about yourself and having self-esteem, of reaching your goals, of pursuing your goals, of knowing what you want, of having the means at some level to be able to do it. All these things can contribute to empowering women, or empowering anyone who feels marginalized or left out. The terms of law have a huge effect on what people are able to do and accomplish and be, and how they are able to be oppressed or not oppressed. So there's a basic need there where women in the Western world already have a lot of that in place. So for them, looking at empowerment can be something completely different, and it can be all about economic empowerment, because they have a lot of the law in place that protects them and gives them the right to be who they want and pursue what they want. So for them, empowerment comes a lot from economic empowerment. But even then, it also goes into the self-empowerment, empowerment of your everyday life and how you feel about yourself and how you move through the world and the choices you have throughout your day. So I think empowerment moves from these global, larger issues, and as those are resolved, it just sort of filters down into other ways of empowerment, from political ways and the law to economic, to the home life, to the self. And depending on where you are in the country, you will need to focus on a different one of those things before you can focus on the others. And people coming in from the Western world focusing on economic or home life need to understand whether or not these other larger basic ways of empowerment are in place for women in the country that they're trying to serve. So there's really a lot of levels and layers and facets to this issue of empowering women. We can also get into education. Education fits in there as well. Knowledge. Knowledge is power. And there's a lot of countries where that door is closed to women. So that goes right back to rights, to just be able to get educated, and that goes right back to politics and rights again. So I think we need to have more detailed discussion and understanding of the levels and layers of empowerment and how we can move forward in working with women and to lift them up in different countries around the globe. As in the HuffPost article, she says, the critical question for those young women who became agents of change or empowered, how did this happen? And a staggering 46% replied self-awareness, a process of knowing who they are. This was followed by experience, and education was a distant third. So we have to also know what is important to women and not rush in to say that education will empower them. If you're coming from an economic standpoint, then I could see why a lot of people say that. Then we need to take the stance of we are economically trying to empower women with sewing machines and chickens or education. Then that has a different feel, and there's an understanding there that this is not the be-all and end-all of their empowerment, that there are other layers and levels that need to be addressed as well. Because a lot of times the politics and the laws of a country do not allow for a woman to do much more than that. So I think this is just the start of the discussion as I continue my research into what really empowers women and how I can support that and develop my own model, and whether what I'm doing is really speaking only to Western women or women around the globe, and how I myself want to approach it and address the issue. But even if I wanted to speak mostly to Western women for whatever reason, whatever shows up in the research, just knowing that that's what I'm doing and not trying to apply it to every woman in the world and apply it to every country around the globe and thinking that it's going to work for every single woman. We have to know the limits of our research and our research questions that we're asking. And we need to question them and look at all the different variables and all the different ways the people we're discussing live their lives and the issues that they have. So I plan on revisiting this again in the near future. But I hope you all have a good day. Think about this a little bit more deeply and how you are empowered or not empowered in your own life. And stay fierce.
Thank you for listening to Victoria's Nirvana. Tell your friends to listen and visit victoriasnirvana.com to subscribe and join the Nirvana Sisterhood.